Hello everybody, my name is Squaggy and let's do the set review for DZ-BT16 Paralactic Dawn. This set is pretty interesting. It contains a lot of the cards used in the mangas, both the Skyride manga, which is where Virgilla comes from, and the Paralactic Clashes prequel manga, which is where some of the new Fantome units come from, like Artisaria and Welstra. This set is pretty interesting, having a lot of new decks, a lot of support for some of the older decks, especially the Phantom decks from DZ-BT14, which are all kind of bad pre this set. But I think most of those old decks and even some of these new ones are pretty robust just with this one set. So let's take a look at how the meta is going to shake up. I'm going to rate every card individually alongside their archetype, and once more, most of the slide design is done by Claude B. So say thank you Claude B in the comments. For those who are new here, this is how the rating system works generally. At 4 stars, you are likely to be a meta deck or feature in one. At 3 stars, it's possible that a deck is meta or feature in a meta deck, card-wise, but I'm not as certain about as a 4 star is. For 2 stars, I'm pretty confident that the deck is not meta relevant, but the card or deck is still pretty good. At 1 star, the card is bad. Most cards will be rated in batches, basically their archetype, but will still be individually rated as well. And higher rarity cards with strengths or flaws that are really pronounced will outweigh the lower ones, right? Because you're going to be spending more on triple rares, so I want you to know if those triple rares are really bad relative to like a rare, for example, okay? Plus, it's really unfair to compare a rare to a triple rare in terms of strength, when obviously the rare is going to have less text on it, right? So let's see how it plays out. Starting us off is this set's Gabrielius piece, Planetary Replication, and surprise surprise, it's a 4-star card. This card is really good. The only problem is that can you find it early to get the value out? Because if you find this card really late, then the value isn't very high, right? Because this card's purpose is basically to try and heighten the amount of triggers you check in a drive check because you can scribe. But for decks like brandgate ones with Sporadic Zero Dragon that can search set orders, and Dragonic Overlord that can just add this to its hand, this becomes a really strong snowbally piece that turns good trigger rates into great ones. This is a really powerful card, and if you can search it, you should play it. You should also just keep on the lookout in the future for any deck that can run this, because with this in mind, those decks become a lot better. So 4 stars, really strong stuff, but not universal. This set also introduces new draw triggers into the format, and all of them look like this. When they're placed on guard circle, you can Soul Blast 1 or Energy Blast 2 to give it 10,000 shield, and if your opponent is great than you or grade 3 or greater, it's 15,000 shield. So basically either a 15k shield like a heal, or 20k like a front. And these are all 4-star cards. These can be in enough decks that I think the cards are good, if not great, and the application of a 20k shield that can also draw you one when checked is really powerful. It's not for everyone, but for the decks it's good in, it's very good. Some decks can't really pay the cost, right? But when you can pay the cost, then this is one of the most efficient guarding cards in the game, because draw triggers are kind of balanced in the past, because they would be 10k shields and then you draw one and it would add up to about 15k because the card you drew is likely a 5k. Now with 20k plus any other draw, so the shield value has gone up a lot. A great defensive tool if you can run it. I think I would recommend trying to find the space. I don't think this makes those 3 front decks become 3 draws, but I do think there is room to explore stuff like 7 crit, 2 front, 2 draw, for example. So try it out. Alright, now into the individual nations, and we're going to start with Dark States' Artisaria Phantom, the cover card of the set. Team Shooter Prota, 4 stars. I just like how she looks, she's cute. Team Fighter Astroea, also a 4-star card. This card is really good for something like Youth Perk, right? You're going to be checking 7 for 1, and here it's 7 for 2 cards, right? Obviously, you don't mind milling the set order, and the moon to your hand is really good. The fact that this also works riding into your grade 1 turn and not like on the grade 2 ride up is really strong, because Artisaria runs a fair amount of grade 1s, and the generic is good here. The generic Phantom unit we'll talk about later. So calling that on 1 can be a really good high roll enabled by this fast search. Lianorn is also a 4-star card. Hard adding the order is really good on ride up, since you can immediately toss it for ride fodder next turn, or if you have something like Spiral Cutie that you rather discard, you can instead play that from your hand next turn and then it draws you one, and then it's becoming like your ride line gives you a draw 1. Which is pretty good. That's like Blaster Blade if you squint. But I am referencing this order without showing you the order, so before we get into the grade 3 Vanguard, it's probably worth talking about the order, which is this. Tic Tac Fuss Timer. Another 4-star card in my opinion. This card basically gives a unit 10k every turn. Since you rest 1 for its cost to be played from the drop or the hand, you're basically going to give 5k to that unit, and then when the battle phase restarts with Artisaria's skill, which you'll see later, it gains another 5k. It's also very searchable in this deck, and is a really solid kind of resource tool because you can discard it, you can play from your hand and it'll immediately draw you one, which is good, and yeah, I really like the design of this, 4 stars. And now finally we can talk about Artisaria Fantome, which is a 4-star card. This card is really good. Proccing the order anywhere is great because it gives you flexibility with where it goes if you want to discard it for ride, and obviously setting it is free since the order will restand 1 anyways, right? The way her scaling works is also really solid, and the attack pattern is honestly fine. I know there are a lot of people who think, oh, it doesn't do 5 attacks on 3, how slow, therefore it's bad, but honestly going into 4 into 5 on turns 3 and 4 respectively is good. The power adds up a lot too. You know, people are still topping with Heart Luru, and this is not particularly far behind with its Fantome package. The turn 5 is really good, but see it more as a bonus rather than the end-all be-all of the deck. Having turn 4's 5 attacks with such great power because you get 2 doses of 5k thanks to her second skill, alongside the Tic-Tac Fast Timer giving more power. Think of turn 4 as a really strong push turn as well. It's not just all about your turn 5. I'm pretty satisfied with what this card does and why I've given it 4 stars. And if I were greedier, I'd ask for an in-Vanguard way to net advantage in the main phase, but you could consider putting the order from hand to order zone to draw 1 as your advantage generation. So I'm really happy with this. 4 stars. Steam Blader Shuriken is also a 4-star card. This card is insane. Energy Blast 3 in a deck that almost never uses energy to add anything important in your deck or take the draw is kind of crazy. It lets older fast timers scale up. Donating power to the center line is really good because at some point that can restand, and usually the unit boosting Artisaria is 8k, so this helps you hit really relevant thresholds. She's your main beater, your main advantage generator. She does everything. One of the best cards in the set. Malvidi is a 3-star card. This card is also very strong. Both effects have their merit, and the crit lasting till the end of the turn is really strong on turns 5 onwards. My problem with it is it being forced to enter the center back row. That is an annoying stipulation, and while not the end of the world, certainly makes for something that you can't just spam like the other Fantome Grade 1 or things like Philia. It's a good card, I can't lie to you, but it's not exactly at the level of the other cards. Lianorn is the Fantome generic Grade 1 that every nation has, but I'm rating them individually rather than all together like I did the draw triggers because these are all in different nations with very different stipulations, and while the draw triggers are pretty generic and I can tell you straight off the bat they're all good, these ones, in some nations they're better than others, so I just want to get into detail about it, right? So I'll put Lianorn here with Artisaria because he's quite relevant. Both Gabrielius and Artisaria play really critical Grade 3s and have the space to include a card like this, and as such, this card is very strong in both. I'd recommend playing these at high quantities in both those decks because they synergize very well with the Guard and the Search. Piriel is a 4-star card in Artisaria. It's not every day that your combined rusher is also a 10,000 point shield. It's really good as the game progresses, no longer needed to counterblast. It's really good as the game scales up, since you don't have the counterblast in the late game, and in a really big pinch, you could technically CB1 and Rest 2 to get 2 from your drop zone since there isn't a name stipulation on the board, but that should rarely be happening. My main reason for this card's really high rating is that it's a recurring 10k shield. That's basically all it is. It's like block cards in toys, and that's a crazy card. This really gives the deck some good sustain. Mikaldit is a 2-star card to me. I think you're better off running other cards in the deck like Lianorn. The mill is not very impactful, and Shriek kind of is your main attacker anyways, and this could be a reasonable backup, which is why she's at 2 stars, but she still feels a little niche. But of course, if you're playing Lianorn anyways, this is a card you can consider, because it is a Grade 3 that can be added off him. Chukamuna is a 2-star card. I mean, she's fine, but the cost is a little bit awkward to the point you won't proc many in a game, and I don't think you'll run her very high quantities as a result, because her utility is kind of low. Overall for this deck, 3 stars. First of all, I know I talked a really big game about a lot of the cards. I basically said every card was 4 stars, and then I ended up giving her 3. Let me explain, okay? This deck I know can read a little bit weird to some people, but open your mind a little bit about how multi-attacks work and how filter can work for a deck. The turn 5 inevitability is good. You can survive till that turn with things like the new draw triggers and the recurring 10k shield, and you have some compensation going second. Like, it's really not so bad. I don't think it's a meta-defining threat at 3 stars, but it is good enough that if you like rogue playable strategies, this should really be up your alley. For fun, 4 stars. Managing the resting and restanding looks great. You get to say you have a second battle phase, which is a really fun thing to do, and you get to pretend to be Leonorn Vivace every once in a while, and who doesn't like being Leonorn Vivace? Before the video continues, I just want to advertise, I do have a Ko-Fi. I'm not going to paywall any content. Obviously, I don't really have a lot to paywall, but if you'd like to support the channel and what I do, and you want to see me, maybe try to upload a bit more regularly, maybe improve this microphone of mine, then any help would be appreciated. You don't have to donate, just want to put it out there in case you do want to support the channel and what I do. Okay, back to the video. Next up, Gabrielius Fantome. Gabrielius Fantome is one of the worst decks in DZ-BT14 and has gotten a pretty big buff. So let's see how it plays out for him. Resilience Dragon is a 4-star card. This card does a lot. Powerful shields both late and early, very resource efficient when called from the hand, and becomes the de facto best call target for Gabrielius. Does it fix Gabrielius? Not really, but it does give Gab a bit more teeth. To nitpick a bit, having an early crit rear guard seems super good, and it is strong, don't get me wrong, but in practice, it is like the third attack of the turn, and it's extremely telegraphed, so your opponent can just adjust their guard accordingly to fish for defensives and prep to guard. It doesn't gain as much power as something like Gancelot will immediately, so it's a lot harder for you to guard the telegraphed Gancelot swing in Ichikon on a Soul Save return because, even if you know that's coming, you can't stop it. But for this one, he's not that big. You can kind of stop him. You can really prep for him. If you see him in the drop zone, you know it's coming. And they've given you a lot of opportunity to fish for guard as well. It's not like on the Alpha turn where Gancelot doesn't give you time to fish for defensive. This one, you do get some leeway, which makes this card not as good as something like Gancelot, even though it gains power and crit just like him. It is by all accounts quite strong though. It has all the right text in a deck that needs a lot more than that though. Virtuous Dragon, 3 stars. On first glance, I did not like him very much. He didn't seem like you were really value adding to your hand, but he is a free call and that can't be looked down on, especially in a meta where the best deck in the room Energy Blasts 3 and retires a unit. It's solid enough early, has some power late, but it doesn't do much more. It's pretty good, but I wouldn't say it's excellent. 3 stars. Amicable Dragon, 1 star. It's just kind of hard to justify this in the space Gabrielius doesn't already have. The card isn't good enough relative to the other grade 3s. The Moon Dig requires large quantities of this card and you really can't afford that. It's a shame too because he is kind of cool. Lapgound, 1 star. It actually is super interesting, though I really can't fathom the space for this. And absorbing 2 in Gabrielius isn't even like that bad. You kind of want to have 2 cards in your soul. So I'm not sure if this is actually fixing that big of a problem. I mean, the power is nice, I guess. I can see some application of this card though. It's like the most 2-star card I've ever rated a 1. Baron is a 1-star card. This is not good enough payoff for the setup. It's not searchable easily. It contests a very heavy grade 1 slot in Dark States. I just don't see this one working out for Gabrielius. Overall, 2 stars. Gabrielius is not good. There's no way around that, unfortunately. I just don't think he has the teeth, but it is way more playable than before. Your pressure pivoting from the worst 5th attack enabler on the planet to a card that is actually pretty solid is very nice. I think it's a little bit worse than Rogue playable. Think of Rogue playable as something like what Artisaria is rated at right now, and I don't think it's at the level of the really good decks in the room, which obviously Ichikon and stuff, but even some of the really good decks from this set, which I'll get into a bit later. But it's not like awful. It's not Hexa Orb or something in that it feels really outdated. It's just a little bit behind. It should feel quite smooth to play, but I can't sing any more praise for that. And 4 stars for fun because you get to round off a lot of the weird edges in Gabrielius and you get a 2 crit rear guard, and that is really fun. Now let's talk about Alkasal. This one, full disclosure, I'm super biased about this deck. I think this deck is really good. I didn't think that before this set, but I think the cards I got this set are really good, and now I am quite biased towards it. So keep that in mind as I go into these ratings, which, spoiler alert, are very favorable towards her. You may feel differently, the results may show otherwise, but these are just my beliefs as of basically set release day, okay? Rose Flame's Demonic Lady Orzel is a 4-star card. Our Maples are also our Maples in 2026. This card is crazy. It fixes one of Alkasal's biggest issues, being her low drive count. All that filter and we check nothing. So having more drive can really add to the pressure of a quite low powered Vanguard. It also helps so you can stack crits on Leilua. The free respawn is really good. It works early. It's super nice. Crimson Glare Emily, 4 stars. This is a custom card. It's so good. Top 5, filter anything, preventing deck out with the recycling, not a hard once per turn, and opens up some counterblast for Alkasal. Alkasal has a bit of a weird, conflicting issue, where the deck has really good guard, but it needs 2 counterblasts a turn for her maximum output. But with Emily, you now only need 1. Meaning you can guard without worrying about getting fully counterblast denied, letting you better leverage your guarding. Obviously before you had the on-swing countercharger, but that card was a little bit clunky. Splurge Devourer, like if Harvest Elf were bad. And Blythe, 1 star. The space is kind of tight, and this really isn't an urgent problem that needs fixing. It's cute though. Overall, 4 stars. This is definitely my hottest and strangest take. I think Alkasal is a completely pilot-dependent tier deck. Is it tier 1? I'm not sure about that. But I certainly think it can go toe-to-toe with many of the other 3-star decks I've talked about and exceed them with good play. If you're not a good pilot, it'll just be okay. But if you maximize your output in sequencing and setting up the soul, I think we have a really potent deck on our hands. Putting some bias aside, it's probably a bit more accurate to call her a 3-star deck, but the sentiment should remain, she is strong. And for what it's worth, Alkasal is really fun. Play that Queen's Order, call 2 from the soul, that feels amazing. Alright, that was Dark States. Most of the cards there are really strong. I think Artisaria, Gabrielius, and Alkasal are all in pretty good spots relative to where they were before. None of the cards felt really unnecessary, they're all really strong. If you like those archetypes, congratulations, this set is fantastic for you. Now, let's move on to Dragon Empire. Starting off with Lisciafael Fantome, a manga original. Moonflower Stealth Fiend Millie's is a 3-star card. It's cute, but something about her face rubs me the wrong way. She's alright though. Lilia is a 4-star card. Yes, the write-up is a little bit slow and it doesn't give a lot of immediate value, but it does have the secondary combined rusher effect that enhances your turns quite a bit, and I quite like that. Lisciafael isn't really a deck that kind of lives and dies by casting the Moon Order, so this is a fine place for it to be, but it can also be retrieved by the Great 2. Speaking of, Sudica is a 4-star card. The on-ride effect is a powerful plus adding moon, even adding a moonflower is fine. And the guard skill is useful because Lisciafael can, spoiler alert, guard from the soul. There's a lot to like here. The right line trades immediate benefit for slower late game utility, and I can appreciate that in a right line. The main Vanguard, Moonflower Stealth Princess Lisciafael Fantome is a 3-star card. I'll say it now, I am docking the point for 2 pretty awkward things. 1. No main phase advantage generation. Not that I think the deck really needs it on the Vanguard, but if you want the deck that on release can go toe-to-toe with the top-of-the-line stuff, that would have been pretty appreciated. The second thing is how her power works, which won't give 10k to any unit called after the skill resolves, meaning that multi-attack enablers after Albelina, who call another unit from your deck, will not benefit as much. And I don't think that was necessary. I think they could have easily let the called unit gain another 10k. I mean, the unit called, by your rear guards that you just called off Lisciafael's skill, but hey, I digress. That aside, this card is at least pretty good. It is a strong multi-attack skill and the Phantom skill is crazy strong. Over the course of the game, this should save you like 8 cards if you do it all 4 times, and I think because the Vanguard isn't very self-sufficient, I don't like it very much, but that's not to say the card is bad. The card is really good. I'm just biased in a very specific way. Albelina is a 4-star card. This card is crazy. It enables 6 attack turns, advantage generation, powerful attacker. It's so nice. Also the art, I don't give any points for art, but this one, wow. Really good. Again, I wish if it called the unit in battle phase, maybe you got a bit of power on that unit as well, but I just cannot be too greedy. The card is very good value as is. Talnachika, also 4 stars. This card is very good. 10,000 point shield, obviously mattering a lot with Lisciafael's guard pattern. It can enable 5 attacks if you for some reason don't have any more Albelina, and she's a great call target of Albelina. She's an anti-deck out tool, and gives you a deck to continue playing the grind game with. Really interesting card, I'm a big fan of this design. Amphi is a 3-star card. She's fine. A very different form of pressure than Albelina and has board interference. I just wish it were a bit easier to get the crit, but this is still fine. The main reason this isn't 2 is that if you want, this card is searchable with the new generic grade 1, which we'll talk about later, and that's pretty nice. Umeria is a 2-star card. She's fine. She plays with the anti-deck out mechanic and the resource recycling of the other card, but just does it a little bit less. But she's not bad. Rebasel is a 4-star card. Draws a card, buffs the center. This card does a lot. The shield value is also pretty high. I'm a big fan of this one. Definitely a card you want to see going into turn 3. Maybe I wish it was a bit better earlier, but it's still fine. Kretosh is a 2-star card. I think she does a little bit too little. I'm not that big of a fan of her, but I can't deny that, hey, this is a decently useful skill. Obviously, all the costs, quote-unquote, of putting a Moonflower to your deck isn't really a cost. Like, that's fine. Overall, Lisciafael Fantome, 4 stars. Did I rate every card kind of low individually and still put her in a tier where I think she can see meta success? Yeah, I did. I think the deck's individual cards do read kind of weak, but as a deck in totality, the pieces work really nicely together. The Phantom skill is really strong. While I wish the on-swing and Vanguard attack was a little bit better, the deck has a good multi-attack, the rear guards are good and hard searchable, and the resource loop works pretty well. I could very well be wrong about this, but I do think she's pretty powerful right now. Maybe a bit difficult to pilot, maybe it does require some good variance, but I think that's a fine place for her to be, especially with such a strong defense as well. This is a 4-star for fun deck as well. It looks like a really good time being able to basically nullify attacks with your Phantom skill. Again, wouldn't be surprised if 4 on competitive viability is a bit too optimistic. Vanguard does tend to favor the aggressor, and this deck may not always be the aggressor. And here is the grade 1 Phantom generic before we get into Youthberg. 4 stars, Haney Track. This card is amazing in the Dragon Empire decks, maybe less good in Lisciafael, but not impossibly bad to play. She still has purpose there. And in both Alphard and Youth, you do want to find moons really bad, so they do run high habitable zone counters, and they do play some really important grade 3s. Obviously, Dynast in Youthberg, and in Alphard, you want to find Alphard. And also the dragon that comes back from drop zone. I don't remember his name. But those are pretty important, so these cards are solid as hell. Okay, Now let's talk about Youthberg Phantom, who got some pretty good stuff this set. Exacerbate Dragon is a 4-star card. Adding anything grade 2 or higher to hand means stuff like Cyclers and your Dynasts, and the respawn can keep stuff like Forlorn Dragon going. It's also a massive beater, so you're not clogging up your board over something like Latifa or Forlorn Hope. My one gripe is the Counterblast 1 cost, which sometimes can mean casting it early leads to damage denial, but that's mostly fine, just to manage your CB properly. Defiance Dragon is a 3-star card. I wish this card did like one other thing, like if it was a bit better on board, like gains 2k or something. But other than that, I think adding the Dynast from the drop is incredible. It lets you recycle used ones, obviously, by soul blasting them out, or you can even get more aggressive by just flat out discarding Youthbergs from your hand, so you can add them back with Defiance Dragon. And the second skill I find doesn't get used very often because the first skill is usually the one you want. So I wish it did something on the board, like 2k power. But it's not a bad card, but I think it could be better without breaking Berg. So 3 stars. Jeopardizing Dragon, 1 star. Hilarious use of your Counterblast, but it's a bad use, so don't play this one. Overall, 3 stars. Again, maybe this is a bit of bias, but I do think Youthberg Phantom can do it. This new wave makes finding Dynast a breeze between the Haney tracks and the Exacerbate Dragons, and being able to get them back from drop with Defiance. It lets you drop Dynast from your hand so you don't clog them up, and it gives you a really impressive attacking unit along with some resource efficiency. I do think the deck sometimes lacks kill pressure being a 4-attack deck, but center twice before the rears is a good attack pattern, and you can really stress opponents out with that. Also, sometimes you have like 2 cards in your hand with shield in a 9-card hand, so keep that in mind when you see your Youthberg opponents with big hands. For fun, it's Youthberg, damn it. 4 stars. Here in the comments, Unbeaten Dragon, you don't need to be V Great Nature to plus your way into 10k. Most decks can already do that, 1 star. Althea is a 1-star card as well. Fine. But at the same time, this is a pretty hefty cost. Retiring all the rear guards in the same column as this unit is just kind of iffy. You can use your energy on better things. Talib, 1 star. Cost is too high, and being in a position when you're attacking the rear guards is not a good spot to be in. Rasib, your opponent just factors this into the guard. 1 star. Biddable Raptor is also a 1-star card. Really interesting to effects, but the cost is a bit too high. I love his art though. Alright. Let's now talk about Enlariel, the big grade 4 boss from Skyride. This one has some pretty interesting mechanics to him, so let's see if he's any good. So first of all, starter, 3 stars. He's not very cute, but he is kind of cool. He's our first Evo Keter deck in a while, so this is really nice to see. The grade 1 is a little slow, 2 stars. It can't even dig for the grade 4, which seems a little bit surprising to me. It is just surprising how limiting it is, and it's not even on the grade 1 right for a bit of like a counter push. Odd stuff, I guess, but I guess they wanted it to be a bit slower of a deck. The grade 2, Enlightening of Evening Shadow, is a 2-star card as well. Mill 2 is a fine skill, but top 7 and it comes a little bit slow. I again know it's supposed to be a bit of a slow roll of a deck, but you can't deny it certainly doesn't help its position in the metagame at large. Obviously, the best mills are the ones that just EV2 and call themselves back, but you may not find those in your 7. And the bigger ones can only be brought back with the order as I understand it. I get why it's like this, but I think it would have been fine to let this right line do a bit more. The grade 3 is not even really the boss. The grade 3, this is 3 stars here. That's an error. This is supposed to be a 2-star card. It's a Vanguard that is completely focused on gathering resources on turn 3 with no innate power gain, unlike something like Lunatic or Obadiah, which function very similarly but have 33k swings. Again, obviously they want this deck to be a little bit slow, but this is the bare minimum a Vanguard would need to be not be a pack filler challenge build. In a set full of decks that every turn can cast in order to fill the board, generate advantage immediately, and have some pretty good late game scaling, this grade 3 right deck card stands out as one of the worst, so the payoff has to be really worth it. But before that, let's talk about the order card that some of the right lines have mentioned. Cradle of Hollow is pretty good, 3 stars. Cycling back your Hollow Valets back, calling back Use Del Nebre or something, which is your restander we'll talk about later, is useful. I just don't like that you have to wait till like turn 4 to get this to work fully, compared to some of the other cards in the set, which work a lot earlier, but whatever. I mean, you take what you can get. This card isn't bad per se, it's just a bit outclassed, I feel. And now we can finally talk about the big grade 4 Enlightening of Extirpation and Enlariel. And this is a 3-star card. Okay, we're getting somewhere with this, right? It is resource generating still, it gives power to the front, it has Delete, which is one of the best offensive mechanics in the game, whilst also being a pseudo floodgate if your opponent is missing the Persona Ride, and that would be all well and good, but Delete is in a really bad spot. Stride removes it, and Night Rose and Hari are 2 very potent and popular decks. Yakuza searches Persona Ride. And you don't even lose fighter icons, so Soul Saver and Vortex Dragons are still P-Rights. So it is a really bad time to delete End. It is a 18k base, triple driving, double critical threat, and that's really good. But the power he has is really a bit small since your in-archetype grade 1 is like 8k. This caps him at about 26k power with double crit and triple drive, which is fine. But also the scaling is a bit on the slower end. I think hitting plus 5k to your front isn't very difficult on turn 4, right? But it's also not sufficient. It reads really tanky because of its high base, and you can cheese games with the center obviously having triple drive and crit, which I'll reiterate again. And he is really cool, but I just can't give him more than 3, and even 3 is really generous for a card that desires so much more. Compare this to something like Jejouling Ignis, who can give 15k to the front row and can have also 8k boosters. Ignis swings for 36k to 0, also with triple drive, also with double crit, and doesn't require rewriting every turn in the grind game. Though this deck does have 4 attacks that push into 0 power, Ignis only has 3 if both sides are restanders, it becomes really clear that the budget went into ensuring your opponent doesn't feel too bad about being deleted, which resulted in a card that is a bit outclassed. Delnebre is your restander and is a 3-star card. He's fine. Restanding with the bonus buff of your Vanguard is nice, but again, you gotta compare it to P-Riding Vanguards with restanders like Astroea Fantome in this set, or Artisaria Fantome in this set, and in that context, he's just kind of okay. He's fine, I guess. He's a great Forbidal target, and the shield value plus countercharge you can go in aggressively with without worrying about being denied is a nice boon, and because of that, it'll sit comfortably at 3 stars. Hollow Valet Fonset is 3 stars as well. She's fine. Draw 1 for CP1 is the best skill in the game, and into your opponent's deleted Vanguard, you can hit like 30k to guard, which even unboosted isn't bad. I just wish it did like a little something else, like isn't it supposed to do something when it's bound maybe? I thought that would be something nice to add, but no, it's just, that's it. It's fine, I just wish it was a little bit more. Norgosh, I've given 3 stars to as well. It's decent at rebuilding your boards, bad when Fonset is on the table, because she hits harder. But this one does have the CC1, and if Delnebre is nowhere to be found and Fonset isn't around either, he can be around to hang out and be a good unit to bind, getting the CC1, and he's 15k at least, which into a 0 base is like 20 to guard minimum, before counting the fact that the Hollow Valets gain power. And you know what? If this card can be on the board, that's already pretty good. You know, being there is kind of half the battle with this deck. Norzroid is 3 stars as well. It's got good shield value, it can help rebuild the boards. My standards are very low for this deck, so this card reads awesome. And it even has synergy with the right line, just like a Norgosh. You know, milling 2 off the top and then being able to access him again. That's pretty good, so I'm pretty comfortable with 3 stars. Overall though, I have to give this a 1 star. I think the deck is quite bad. Now, when we say bad decks in Vanguard, they're not like unplayably bad. You can probably still win with this. You could probably do pretty well with this, honestly, at like a local level. But I just think compared to some of the other decks in the format, you will be struggling. It's a deck that plays really slow, then aims to explode really late. Think of it like, again, Jejouling Ignis. But even then, that deck has game on 3, and this one really doesn't. The overall payoff is kind of low relative to how much oomph you have to give up early. And I suppose you can supplement that engine with some Kedar generics, but if every deck can play Kedar generics, what's the point of playing a bad one with them? If you want a deck that needs to rewrite in Kedar, has multi-crit and some defensive utility, you can just play Blank the Mire, right? I just don't see this deck being very good. It's too slow and too low on guard in the early game. That's just now so fast. On fun though, you get to delete. 4 stars. That's awesome. Now let's talk about the surprise Phantom of the set. Lianorn Phantom. The greedy girl has more. Seraphic Notes Corfi is a 3-star card. They're cute. They translate really well into an angel. I just am not really crazy about them. Gracia. 4 stars. 2 types of things you can search. Both are really relevant early. Big fan. Generating the advantage early is also really appreciated because you do need to get pieces quickly because early game you don't really do a whole lot. So this is nice. Rectina is a 4-star card as well. Calling back Seraphic Notes lets you use them early for guard and synergizes with stuff with Sinceret's discard. A lot to like here. This makes it pretty easy to formulate boards going into grade 3. And in stuff like Soul Blasting for Koflagan or even the grade 1 generic and you with every other Seraphic Notes, you can always call Soul Blasted out cards from the right line, and that's fine. Seraphic Notes Lianorn Phantom. Oh my gosh, there are so many words on my screen right now. Pause to read it, I guess. With this much text, she better be good at 4 stars. Her Phantom skill is insanely efficient. The restand attacks do make her very Harduru-esque, I guess, but without as much power. Having the flexibility of whether you want this card to have 2 crit or 3 drive, it does come up, as does being able to choose between the guard restrict and the crits, which we'll get into a bit later on. But yeah, her rear guards let her have those abilities, so keep that in mind, okay? The worst I can say about it is that the power lines are kind of weak and she's not helping very much unless you call stuff off the Phantom skill, which needs time to scale. And the back row center is kind of weak in this deck as well. I know I'm talking a lot more about the deck right now, but you have to kind of talk about it because the Phantom skill really involves a lot of the deck. But I can see that being fixed in wave 2, giving you like a little bit more oomph, like how Magnolia Phantom got a card like that. Also, again, call from deck. Anything from the deck. This card is really good as a Vanguard. 5 attack enabler, resource efficient, it's got everything but the power, but you can just check a trigger, right? And what do you do with those triggers you check? Well, you put them on these powerful rears. Sinceret is a 4-star card. Good discard fodder early, obviously, but the effect on board is really good and is one you'll be restanding most of the time. It's like Bravely Lost from Heartluru. There isn't a lot to say here. Having a right face discard skill makes this card automatically incredible, especially as a good Rectina target. Tsukyu's is 4 stars as well. Be careful not to get Counterblast denied with this card, but other than that, this guy is pretty good. At any of the Seraphic notes or the moon itself is crazy, basically adding anything in your deck. And the restand skill is your best target at 5 damage breakpoints. Keep in mind with the way Leonorn works, you are restanding 2 things, one from each side of your board. On one side are cards like Tsukyo's and Sinceret, both of which have their own individual attacks buffed, whereas the other side, when you restand them, they give Leonorn buffs on the swing. You can't get both, you can only get one of the two, so keep that in mind when you're choosing what to restand. I've just slotted this in here, I think it's relevant to talk about now. Use slot is the Phantom generic of this Catter Sanctuary, and it's pretty good. Adding Norn or Kofilgan from your deck in Leonorn is good. It's also a way to Soul Blast out Leonorn Phantom so that you can call her to the front row for late game power. The issue with this card and why I can't really give it 4, even though I think he is pretty good in Norn, it's just that I don't think he's very good in Blank the Mire. Like, obviously Blank the Mire has targets, but the space feels really tight in Blank. Your searcher of choice should probably be Badakt, right? You can run this card, there are good targets there, but overall it's a little bit wacky. 3 stars is where I'm comfortable with this, but I could see it being lower as well. Brookdes is a 2-star card. The application with this card is pretty low overall, sans Gans a lot in the format, and the crit giving skill, while relevant, is on a low priority relative to the triple drive that the other rearguard will give. Usually this is best on like a 3 damage breakpoint. There are some bonus crit threats in the format in general, so I may be a bit overly harsh on Brookdes, but just that Gans slot is the only major one and the rest are just like, whatever. It's really good to Gabrielius, right? Beltierna is a 3-star card. This one is really good because Drive +1 in this deck is effectively checking a crit. The guard skill comes up a lot more often with stuff like the Yaoi icon decks and things like Nirvana, so they're good but not quite amazing, which is a fine place for this card to be. Cobalt is a 3-star card as well. This is the most filler card to ever fill a slot that they want to fix in the future with like Seraphic Notes Luster Impact to Dragon or something, but this card is actually pretty solid. 15k recurring shield to the Vanguard is good, since you can call it back. It's a bit limited, but the effect is really strong, and of course in retired decks, it's kind of the bait. You're gonna just get this one retired all the time by Blaster Blade, so get used to that. Overall, 3 stars. I know we gave this deck a lot of crap on release, but it's actually fine. The deck got compared a lot to Heartluru, but probably plays a bit more like Magnolia Phantom. It's got a ton of bulk, really good filter, and can grind the game out to late stages to triple drive check file not for lethal. It's seriously not as bad as people have made it out to be, but it's also not that great. Like, I can't lie to you about that. Going first, the numbers are good, but going second, it's kind of eh. And later on, you're pretty much going to need to have Leonorn Phantom in the front row herself to make good numbers to kill late game. But if you are really attached to Norn, I wouldn't be so hard on her. I think this deck is completely fine. I would say she's even good. And on the fun level, I just gave her a 4. I mean, Norn players, you'll play anything with Leonorn on the cover, so you'll have fun, okay? And even if you don't, I think the deck can feel pretty exhilarating, having a lot of filter. Calling from deck. I just can't believe that you can call basically anything from deck. And also you get to kind of test your ability to pick which of the cards you want to restand, which I know sounds crazy, like, oh, you know, I can't believe Vanguard has skill, haha. I know, I get it. I promise you it is a small skill check, and it is appreciated that it gives you that, okay? Alright, let's talk about Brandgate. Here we have Tokkoumaru, the new deck from Brandgate. This is a Skyride deck, and it involves rewriting over this grade 3 with some different forms. So we'll talk about those later, but for now, let's look at these. Tokkoumaru, grade 1, 4 stars. He's so cute. He's such a cute little loser. I love him. My little son. Ultima Weapon, 4 stars. Whenever you have one of these right lines that set a token order, it's only as good as the token order is, right? Like this grade 1 basically lives and dies by how good that token is. And to that end, it's 4 stars. I think the token is very good, and here it is. Toy Hanger is a 4-star card. I really love the flexibility, so you don't really brick on pieces. You can filter a crap ton every turn for free, and the cards you're adding there tend to be decent or good if you're the combined rusher that draws one, Hayabusamaru. It being the start of the main phase can sometimes be a little bit weird, like there are some scenarios where you want to do this dig a little bit later before committing to the recycle or something, but it's still really good. The turn after turn value is really strong. Ultima Weapon Tokkoumaru is also 4 stars. This card is so good. It adds everything you want to your order zone, being both your superior right target and the next unit you need, which is frequently like the Lion. It's an auto filter 2 in the Elder Breath Nation with triple drive. It is also obviously a necessary evil of the deck to have such a good grade 2 piece like this, because the deck needs to run a lot of clunk. But it really goes above and beyond for that. Bad decks could be those that say, oh, check top 7 and find 2, but this one just adds them, and that makes it really consistent. Great stuff. The main grade 3 Ultima Weapon Tokumaru himself is a 3-star card. Obviously, you can't really evaluate him without looking at the overdrive, so we'll go there soon. But Soul Blast 1, the call from your hanger, is basically Soul Blast 1 superior call unit from the deck, and that's pretty good, considering you tend to run pretty good stuff in the order zone. But it just doesn't do much else. No extra little bonus or QOL, it just does what it needs to do. And that's well and good, but it just means it's capped at 3 stars. So, let's break order a little bit. Normally we go over the next triple rare, but let's talk about the overdrives now, starting with the Stark Overdrive. And Strike is a 4-star card. It's really good for the turn 3 attacks. Triple driving and restand is really solid. Restationing the card is really useful if it's stuff like the Lion, and the fact that it's online so quick makes it such a powerhouse. Again, triple drive in Elder Breath Nation. Because of how the rewrite works, if you Soul Blast Strike out, you can put him back to the order zone using one of the combat beasts. So if you're whiffing stuff like Persona Ride, you can comfortably pivot back into Strike if you're only running like 1. But obviously, the most exciting part about this deck is this next one. Overdrive Stark is a 4-star card. This card is really clunky to pull off, but it 100% needs to be. I still maintain a high star rating because I do think this finisher move is worth the investment. You probably end the game off Strike in the Stark, and he is crazy. The way the drive system works here in Brandgate means Elder Breath is really good. Into 4 damage is really scary, hell, even into 3 damage it's really good. The output is really high, and the only thing that makes me iffy on him is kind of the high cost and forced late game. He's clunky, but I think he needs to be. And if you want a more reasonable rating, it's probably like 3 stars. But I do think the card is very strong despite its stipulations. And Chichimaru is a 3-star card. It does enough that I'm happy with him. He's chunky. He's a safe board rebuilder, meaning Tokumaru's skill plus Enchichimaru can create full front rows, so it's a great experience. Obviously, I'm just kind of docking a point because it doesn't do much else. It's good, and you don't even really want him at high quantities because if you found like 1 or 2 already, you're quite set for the rest of the game. So 3 stars. Seiromaru, 2 stars. The more I try the deck, the less I like Seiromaru. He reads really useful, but oftentimes it's hard to get the payoff, I feel. He's not bad, don't get me wrong. I just find him a bit clunky, which puts him in contention with Brandgate's really impressive lineup of grade 1s. And on that front, running something like Muna may be stronger, even if she's not as searchable. Fujakumaru is 3 stars. I'm a sucker for cards that bind themselves for shield, and this works nice on board and hand. The station from drop is really good because it lets you reuse cards like Strike or some of your important beasts. So overall, good card. If it did anything more, I imagine its rarity would also be higher. Kosomaru is a 2-star card. It reads like Sparkling Bunny, but is stuck in your front row and doesn't gain as much power as the other cards in the deck. He's not bad, but I can't see you running too many because he doesn't really mesh well with your board. Gramble! It's so good, 4 stars. It's so good on turn 3, you can rebuild everything, you can set everything. This card is so flexible, it hurts. You probably can't run too many, but I think this card's power level is so high that it's too good not to be 4 stars. It's functionally Habitat that can search the whole deck, and that card's great. Overall, 3 stars. I would not be surprised if this deck saw competitive success, but it could also be a bit of a flop. Though from my experience, it's quite smooth. The deck often achieves what it wants to achieve, and Stark can be pretty deadly on the second shot at it, which the deck can reasonably achieve with the amount of draws you can do with stuff like Muna, and EB Cyclers, and even Seiromaru. It has a bit more hand than you'd expect, but still sometimes you could clog up on Starks and Scrambles, and is kind of trigger reliant. Aside from that, I find the deck quite potent. Also 4 stars for fun, this card's awesome. Now let's talk about Aelquilibra Phantom, who got some really powerful cards this set. Hoop is a 4-star card. I have no idea why this card is like this. There isn't a cost on this card, it's searchable off everything. Hell, it's recyclable off everything. Because it's a product card, right? And a lot of your cards say add a product card to your hand. It's one of the best targets to be overcharged once you've gotten through the ping for 1. And sometimes you can let it whiff just so you have a perma 10k booster behind your grade 3 product order attacker. It's really solid. This card is crazy, literally a 5-star card if I could. Merhabak is a 2-star card. I think this card is pretty good in a vacuum, but there are going to be some builds that just omit this guy, and that's fair. He kind of fights for board with your 2-crit attacker and isn't good on the overcharge, but he is a good unit to recur your products, and he's not bad in hand and even not that bad on the board. But I'm not just looking for not bad in Aelquilibra because some of the cards in Brandgate are really powerful. He's good with the Phantom generic, but that card is fighting really hard for space in this deck as well. Speaking of which, this is her. This card, as of recording, has pretty middling application. In Libra, maybe, but the Brandgate slots are really tight with stuff like Sporadic Zero Dragon and whatnot, and neither of the current Brandgate decks run a lot of Margarets to my understanding, which makes this a way tougher sell. Maybe with a 3rd Phantom we could see something cool, but not this time. Benvencho is a 1-star card. I know this was tried for a little, but the deck doesn't really need an additional targeted search like this. It is consistent enough to not need such frivolities. Temperate Mechanic, he's kinda hot, 1-star. I know this adds like any product, but it really is an Aelquilibra card, and I think we treat it to that end as such. There is better in that deck, this card is quite bad. Overall, 4 stars. I think Shahoop alone makes this deck ridiculous resource-wise. My main issue is that on mid variants, it's kind of hard to close out a game before you deck out, which almost made me push the deck into 3 stars, but I still think it's really good. There are some other cards you can compare to in this set, like a Welstra in Impolio Phantom, which we'll get into later, which gives a lot of power in a deck that was already pretty efficient, and thus that deck has a lot of good sack chances, whereas this one does not have a better sack chance than it used to, and thus is a little bit tougher to close out a game. But the deck is really efficient, has really good synergy with the new Gabrielius piece in the set, and does have, triple drive Elder Breath Wincon. Plus, the Phantom package is just really solid. Keep an eye on this one, I think it has legs. Also, 4 stars for fun. You have so much search in this deck, it feels great. For the comments, Picker 1Q, 1 star, worse than Sporadic Zero Dragon. Haiti, 1 star. The card is kind of interesting though, it's like playing Habitat, but a bit more limited. But maybe you could use it in something like Impolio, right? Maybe in the future. Star Cluster Dragon, 1 star. No big counterblast sinks in any relevant decks, and even Rotovisor doesn't CB2 that often anymore. Don't play this one. Okay, overall, Brand's pretty good. They have the most pack filler this set, but all the good cards are pretty good. So if you're a Brand player, I hope you're excited about Tokumaru and Alkasal. They are both really strong this set, I feel. Okay, moving on to Lyrical Monasterio, we have Astroea Phantom. Malchi is a 4-star card. She's really cute. I really like her design. She's a fun starter as is. Big fan. Sparta here, 4 stars. If I could knock a point off for aesthetics here, I would, I think, because honestly, she doesn't really look like Sparta to me. But I don't do that for great ones. Again, to reiterate, for these kinds of great ones, they live and die by how good the token set order is, and this one is also pretty good. Almagest Celestage, 4 stars. Really good stuff. Digging for the moon means you don't need to dedicate space to the Valshablan if you don't want to, and if you open a crit, you kind of go crazy on turn 1. Being able to move the crits from your board is really heads up, because it lets you call crits off your Crimson Moons, turning that into a draw. Also, I just like the function of crits as a resource. It's neat. Dinah is a 4-star card as well. Sets up your resource, doesn't punish you for guarding your crits early, it's nice. And Unica Phantom herself is a 4-star card. You have to conceptualize this card not really having more than 3 skills with the fact that your set order is in rotation and gives you a skill every turn. For the buffs you get, I think having 3 crits to flip face down on turn 3 is pretty doable, as is 5 on 4, and it gives you a lot of oomph. Topped with some powerful early game cards like Moons and Straja, and I can see this deck being pretty fast. I'm also glad the Phantom skill lets you recycle 1 crit to the deck so you don't just check 2 blanks. If I'm being really critical, I think Twin Drive is still a little bit on a low crit count deck, and the Phantom skill is kind of a little boring sometimes because you're just getting resource back. Not that interesting, but the card is pretty good. Bifrons is a 4-star card as well. This card is good because it's just the old Bifrons but in Lyrical Monasterio, and that card is crazy as all hell. Adds QOL, board building, and digs for both pieces and crits, which you will really need. Nothing but good things to say about her. Phonograph is a 3-star card. A pretty tame multi-attacker all things considered. You could consider Almagestar a 5-attack deck here, but it's more like a 3+2 attack deck, where the +2 isn't always guaranteed. It's also only a +5k, and the restand is locked to your opponent's grade. It works, and it will be necessary to close out a game, but that's all the praise I can give it. Boras is a 3-star card. I actually kind of like this one. Top 7 dig for free for some pretty important cards. Yeah, you go neutral, but she's totally fine on board, and she has shield. And being a grade 3 in a Phantom deck means you can dig for her via the new generic. And she looks like Nova Aokami, who I know isn't watching this, but if you are, let's collaborate. I'm kidding. Anyways, 3 stars, she's fine. Gulu is a 4-star card. I think this card is nuts. 15k shield by turn 2 if Bifrost decides to work the searches early. It can theoretically be a 13k boost by turn 2, and this is a really powerful card. It adds a lot of quality of life and raw power and survivability to a deck like this, and I'm a big fan of these powerful low rare cards. Altea is a 1-star card though. Her power scaling comes out really late, and when it does, it kind of blows. The other cards in the deck like Phonograph already beat its number for the most part, especially considering face-down crits don't count. Timothy is a 1-star card. I'm not too keen on this. While Foolish Burial for 1 card is kind of good, milling a crit isn't as good, especially when you have a fair chunk of ways to dig into it. This isn't good enough, and it doesn't do anything on board. 1 star. Overall though, 3 stars. I like these cards enough. I think power level wise, it's not up to snuff as a wave 1 deck. It feels like it's missing a really good front row attacker, and no, a restand isn't a substitute for a good attacker. Twin Drive is a bit rough, and if you break on the crits, it's a mess. This is like a low 3 stars compared to Artisaria's high 3 stars, you know? But even still, the deck probably has some teeth as an aggro deck, but I'd be scared going into late game with this deck without a proper scaling or sack win con. 4 stars for fun if you like Almagestar though. This is just Almagestar, but the nation is pink. You have to find Bifrost or you instantly lose. That's just like Almagestar. Impolio Fantome also got her triple rare this set, so let's see what they can do. Vinstar is a 4-star card. Exactly what Impolio wanted. This card is fantastic. Discard 1 is a little bit of a hefty cost and you can't easily recycle her, but your deck digs so much as it is a non-issue. This gives Impolio great pressure turn after turn and lets you finally stack crits on these really chunky columns. Furthermore, giving your center 10k is unbelievably good, baiting out PGs there so your columns hit hard, searchable off the generics if you find space, and even a potential 4-bit target if you really want to. This card is ridiculous and a great way to buff a deck, ceiling and floor, and play with its mechanics. This card alone probably makes Impolio tiered. And good thing for that, Alice Vet is a 2-star card. CP1 draw 1 is the best skill in the game, but also Impolio has a Soul Blast 2 draw 1, and the space is kind of tight and you're not really hurting for new front row rear guards, especially ones that don't do a lot on board. I don't think Impolio is really hurting for Soul either, so I don't know. Low quantities at best. The card is alright on paper, but just doesn't add a lot to the deck. Pomis, I'm gonna slot here 3 stars. Lyrical currently has Impolio, Unica, and Magnolia, of which Unica can play her, and Impolio can play her as well. Both run a small percentage of grade 3s, and not that many Welstra as of when I wrote this. Right now, as I'm talking, there is a Vanguard Fighters list which hit top 4, and that deck was on 4 Welstra. So clearly you can alter your deck composition to make this card better, but specifically Magnolia also doesn't run a lot of targets, so this is not very good there. So a little bit iffy on this card in Lyrical Monasterio. Good though, just iffy on whether I can give it 4 stars. Deal Up Rock, 1 star. I just don't really see the application. I think space is getting a bit tight as well, wouldn't rush to play this. The shield is less needed with the Exceed gauge, and your soul is fine with some of the other exceedances as far as I know, so it reads pretty mid. Overall, 4 stars. I think Impolio Fantome, again, is tiered. Like, Vinster is that good. I think being able to sack your opponent out of games and put crits on sides that are already so big is a big boon, and combined with the speed and resource efficiency of a Fantome deck, and I think this is going to be a deck that does outshine its Verity counterpart. I'd be very interested to see if this deck can hold its own. 4 stars on fun as well, you get to quintuple drive. That shit rocks. In your common slop, Cobber is a 1-star card. Hard to find space for such a generic effect. Combos well with the Crimson Moon I guess, but better off running something else. Studia, 1 star. A bit too low of a payoff. 10k is whatever these days for most decks. It doing nothing else is the nail in the coffin. Sayet is a 1-star card. Getting somewhere with these commons, but not really a card I want in my hand again. It don't do much, getting called again and again. Tarita, 2 stars. I don't think she's getting played, but man, this is a decent effect. It's not a +1 or anything, but draw 1 like this could have some applications down the line. Maybe I am being optimistic though. Papika, 2 stars. I can't imagine slotting this into anything right now, but I can just feel that someday this will be used for something really heinous. It's not even necessarily a bad card now, just no Lyrical deck really synergizes with it right now. But keep an eye on this one. Overall, Lyrical Monasterio, pretty good. Unica could be better, but it is a wave 1 deck, so I'm optimistic about it in the future. And Impolio Fantome is really, really strong in my opinion. I could see her being very, very strong in the metagame. And now, let's talk about Estacion and Stoichia as a whole. Again, I'm really biased towards Estacion. I love Estacion, but I also think I have some pretty good reasoning as to why I think these cards are rated where they are. Kachidoki himself is a 4-star card. This card is insane. If it was just the ability to get 1 order from the drop and be a 4th Persona Rite in a deck that really needs to chain those, I'd feel pretty good about this card as is. but it also gives your front row 5k during your turn or 5k during your opponent's, and that's really good. This makes Estacion hit really crazy numbers. If you're seeing 12 gauges in the blast token with a Kachidoki persona, you can declare offense and get plus 35 to your front row. Crazy stuff. Plant tokens become 2 trigger guards. That's really good. The only bad thing I can really say about this card is that it's a twin driver. I know with the raw power the deck has, you could say that's asking for a lot, but in standard right now, any +1 drive may as well be plus 10k +1 crit due to the level of filter and threat it connotes, so being a twin drive deck is a real drawback. Nevertheless, the card is really good. Great Blaze Omega Blast is a 4-star card. The card is very good as a way to improve your odds of hitting the thresholds in your blast gauge, and preventing the deck out that Estacion can sometimes be at risk of. You also don't have to run too many of these because Estacion does recycle them, and a lot of the dragons are worth respawning. Both the summers and the autumns are good. You probably do want a fair amount of Vital Blazers, but this you also want quite a few. I recommend like 2-3 as your ratio. 4 Leaves is a 3-star card. I've pretty much swapped my position on this and Shrooms. The soul I feel in Estacion is much less important of a resource these days, since maybe using it as an outlet for the new draws, and the effect combined with the green summer dragon creates a 5k boost for free on the next swing. The early game column this creates at 13k is also pretty good into a 10k base. It still makes 2 units for the gauge, and in weird pinches it can still make 2 columns as an Estacion call target if like all your grade 2 autumns go out of the game somehow. Pretty good for a rare. Red Ledog, 1 star. Play Albina. Discard 1 is way too expensive. Play Albina if it matters that much. If Estacion isn't good, it's because he doesn't have a third drive, and that's enough of a variance debuff. But I can't imagine this doesn't boost the deck to like low tier 2. The front row power is nuts. The filtering and the handcrafting is good. The draw engine of Summer can also be really strong. The reason why I'm hesitant to give it the 4th star is that the landscape in which Estacion is now in is very different from its debut, where it was undeniably the strongest aggressive deck in the format, boasting big attacks, high number of attacks, and just enough to stay afloat with its counterblast. Nowadays though, it is not really the strongest attacker on the block with some of the powerful icon decks, and sometimes its defense has holes. It's very strong and also really fun, so 4 stars on that latter front, but I can't really bring it to higher than 3 because I do think it is outclassed by many meta strategies. And now, let's talk about Welstra Fantome, the final Fantome unit in the set. Wharton is a 4-star card. I have a really soft spot for Wharton, so 4 stars, he's cute. Strasser is a grade 3. The effect is powerful, but only getting it off on turn 2 is kind of rough. Having access to Crimson Moon on 1 to filter or draw or add the moons earlier would be really nice. The effect is powerful, I like it when your Vanguard does something on ride. Uber is 4 stars as well, pretty good. I think I gave you Phantome's grade 2 a 3 stars, and this is in context a little bit better, so good enough. Welstra Fantome though, I gotta say, 2 stars. The unmarked mechanic is kind of heavy right now in terms of its cost. It necessitates hitting every P-Ride, using the built-in Soul Charge and potentially even something like Inlet Pulse Dragon. The Fantome skill doesn't scale up, and implies the kind of quick play pattern that aims for fast kills rather than long games, which would be fine, but its 5 attack pattern doesn't even add power going first on turn 3, which may seem absurd to want, but if you're not going to get stronger from turn 4 onwards, I do expect something like that. You can compare this to something like Ren Icon, which operates on a very similar axis turn-wise, as 2 decks that are supposed to slam hard on turn 3 with middling scaling and early, and this deck seems a bit on the weaker side. I was pretty optimistic about him on first reveal, but he certainly leaves a bit to be desired. Uvesti Dragon is 3 stars. The superior call skill is well appreciated, especially with it working from drop, and minus 5k is practically plus 5k to all your units, which is really good. Since you can double or even triple up on these, the card is strong and does do well at high quantities, your obvious 4-off, but being harsh, I'm knocking a star off for the fact that CC1 is worse compensation than draw 1 in my opinion. And of course, if you don't find multiple of him, just minus 5k is not sufficient to take those quick kills. Suesi is a 2-star card. Almost every Unmoral unit that isn't Uvesti is rated kind of harshly just because if you're not using Uvesti, you're probably in a weird spot as is, so it's your, I guess I'll use this, you know? It's got a point as a combined rusher, but with Uber being EB3 and you really wanting to use Lemina so your hand isn't 0 at all times, it's hard to find time to use her. And also, the Unmoored skill is way worse than Uvesti so often that she does not have that text. This is a problem all the Unmoored units have, is that they're not worth using over Uvesti Dragon. So they functionally don't have a skill. Omni-Ray Dragon to me is a 3-star card. For a rare, it's pretty good. The Unmoored is fine enough that it's more value than Shuse's. The only one close to Uvesti in terms of oomph, the power donating and soul charge 1 in a deck so soul hungry can be good. It does enough unmoored that I give it a point, does good enough if I have to, and the point is being knocked off because it's a shieldless card, and it's blind soul charge, which isn't great. Perf is a 4-star card. Thank God this card does not need to be unmoored. The shield comes early, the draw skill is really synergistic, and I have no complaints on that front. I don't even wish it did more. This is fine. Rafnir Dragon is a 2-star card. The scaling almost never matters, nor does it beat Omdire, but a mid Philander is still a Philander, so it could be worse. I don't hate playing him. He's okay early game because at least he does something in setting up your board later, but 2 may be a bit generous. Unshooter 1-star, a bit too situational for the payoff. Next slot, again Phantom generic, so we are evaluating this in context of this Welstra deck, and Zareth. Zareth really likes this, getting a filter like Shiguna but also maintaining her shield even on board, plus that deck has a lot of grade 3s they can add, and the Welstra it's also not so bad. Grabbing Persona is important, Omdire is pretty decent, and both these decks I think do like high lemon accounts, so this will add them to your hand very nicely. Overall though, I have to say, 1-star on Welstra, and I'm not happy to saying that. I decided to be a bit harsher with the deck because I think unlike a deck like Youthberg Phantom with a powerful sack potential with 3 drives, being a Dragvita Nation, even if the original deck is kind of mid, this deck does not have as much sack potential to compensate bad RNG. It needs everything to go right for it, and its aggro is outclassed not just in the game, but within the theme of Alkaforce by last set's Maelstrom Reverse. It's not very resource efficient. Its rears are all half what an average deck would have on the fact that most mid skills of all time are locked to the unmoor mechanic, and it lacks any selling point other than the Phantom package. Compare this to the type of skills that the Alkilibra Phantom units get when overcharged, and it's night and day. It's honestly a little baffling that this deck feels so half-baked. In terms of fun, I imagine this is like a 2 stars, unless you're really into Alkaforce's gameplay loop, and its theming, and if that's the case, then it's the 3 stars you see on screen. But I just don't see Welstra fans enjoying the gameplay, and those who like Alkaforce have the Maelstroms, and even if you're a Fujoshi who likes Aelquilibra style overcharge in Welstra, you can just Fujo out over Aelquilibra. I'd probably wait for a second wave. Get it? This deck is bad. Sorry guys, I tried. Alright, let's wrap up with the pack filler. Reason Gauss, this card's not very good. I mean, it's cute, but I don't know, I don't really like it. It's really off-putting to have a card that needs draw trigger specifically like this. It's a lot worse than the lyrical one because this really relies on the checks. So, 1 star. Weldy, 1 star. Any deck that can multi-attack has better. It's not even a tier dragon for Welstra. This is pretty bad. Ralgis, 1 star. Compensation for milling a trigger isn't good, and honestly paying the cost for the skill isn't good either. Jaruk, outclassed by cards like the shield grade ones from the Festival booster, who while a little bit more specific, tend to be the better cards. Let's talk about the set overall. Overall, I think the set is really cool. There are a ton of improvements to the bad DZ-BT14 decks, who now are at least rogue playable. The worst is Gabrielius, and he's fine. The new decks also feel like very complete packages that don't need a lot to achieve a decent tiered status. Stands like the 2 of them who I think are quite bad, being Enlariel and Welstra. I think those are probably the most far off, but the rest are fine, they're pretty close. And do expect that mana impact is quite high. Expect decks like Impolio, Estacion, Aelquilibra. I think those decks can see some really good play in high tier play, or even like really high rogue. I think Artisaria and Unica are fine, that you have to watch out for them, so expect those to take the stage as well. Alright, long video because all 6 nations are here, but that is it from me. As of recording this, set has been out for like a day, but I know I'm going to take some time on the editing, so sorry if it's too late, but I just want to get this out there. I think the set is really cool. I think it's really exciting. I wish some of the decks like Welstra just had a bit more to them. But overall, I'm really happy with this set. Let me know what you guys are playing in the comments below, and I will see you all next time. Bye-bye. Thank you to my Ko-Fi supporters, Big Ben, Long Long, Milk, and Latson. Squaggy appreciates all your support.